Family betrayal cuts deeper than any knife. When loved ones turn against you, the pain can destroy everything you thought was certain in your life. The rain poured down in heavy sheets, soaking through my cardigan as I stood trembling on my own front porch. My arthritis flared in the cold dampness, but the physical pain was nothing compared to the ache in my heart. "Please, Derek, just let me get my blood pressure medication," I called out, my voice breaking as I knocked again on the door of the home I'd paid for with decades of hard work. The porch light flicked on, and I felt a momentary surge of hope. Then the door opened just enough for my daughter-in-law's face to appear in the crack. "We told you not to come back," Sabrina hissed, her perfect makeup unmoved by any hint of compassion. "We don't have room for you anymore, you old leech. Leave." Behind her, I caught a glimpse of my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised alone after his father died. Our eyes met briefly before he looked away, unable to face what he was allowing to happen. "Derek, please, son, please, this is my house." "It's our house now," Sabrina cut in. "Your things are over there." She gestured toward the side of the house where 2 black garbage bags sat in the mud. 47 years of memories, reduced to trash bags in the rain. The door slammed shut. The lock clicked with terrible finality. At 71 years old, I stood homeless in front of the home I'd spent my life paying for, with nothing but the clothes on my back and whatever Sabrina had deemed worthless enough to throw into those sodden dags. I felt my knees weaken. My chest tightened. For a moment, I thought I might collapse right there on the concrete. If you're watching this thinking family could never betray you like this, I need you to stop right now and hit subscribe. The truth is, it can happen to anyone, and what I'm about to share might save you from the nightmare I lived through. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments, because financial elder abuse happens everywhere, and no one talks about it until it's too late. That rainy night was just the beginning of my story. As I shuffled toward those garbage bags, rain mixing with my tears, I had no idea that my daughter-in-law's betrayal went far deeper than I could have imagined. I didn't know then that Derek, my beloved son, had lied about who owned the house. I couldn't have guessed that Sabrina had a history of targeting vulnerable families. And I certainly never expected to discover the hidden document that would turn the tables completely. What I discovered next would change everything. I never dreamed my life would come to this. For 32 years, I worked as a registered nurse at Charlotte Memorial, building a life of service, one 12-hour shift at a time. My husband Clarence and I purchased our modest 3-bedroom house back in 1978. Nothing fancy, just a simple brick ranch with a small garden where I grew roses every spring. When Clarence died suddenly of a heart attack in 1996, I was devastated. Derek was only 15, a boy who still needed his father. But life doesn't pause for grief. I picked up extra shifts, worked holidays, did whatever it took to keep our home and put my son through college. "This house is your security, Evelyn," Clarence had always told me. "Make sure it's paid off before you retire." And I did. Every mortgage payment, every repair, every tax bill, I handled it all while raising our son alone. By the time I retired from nursing at 65, I owned our home outright. It was supposed to be my safe haven in my golden years. For a while, it was. I lived peacefully, joining the church choir, hosting bridge club on Saturdays, volunteering at the food pantry. My neighbors knew they could count on me for anything, watering plants while they traveled or bringing soup when someone fell ill. Then Derek met Sabrina Winters. She swept into his life like a hurricane, tall with honey-colored eyes and a confidence that filled any room she entered. 10 years younger than my son, she carried herself with the certainty of someone who had never known real hardship. "She's incredible, Mom," Derek told me, his eyes bright with infatuation. "I've never met anyone like her." I was happy for him, truly. After his first marriage ended, Derek had been alone for years.
He deserved love. But when he brought Sabrina to Sunday dinner for the first time, something inside me tensed. It was nothing obvious, just the way her smile never quite reached her eyes when she looked at me, the casual way she examined my modest home, her gaze lingering on the older furniture, the dated kitchen, the slight curl of her lip when I mentioned my years as a nurse. "Healthcare is such a difficult field," she'd said, her tone suggesting she'd never consider such work herself. All that effort for so little reward. I brushed aside my unease. Perhaps I was being unfair, judging her too quickly. 5 months later, Derek proposed. 3 months after that, they were married in a ceremony far grander than I thought my son could afford. "Mom," Derek approached me just 2 weeks after the honeymoon, his expression nervous. "Sabrina and I were wondering if we could stay with you for a little while, just until we get on our feet. The apartment we want won't be ready for a few months, and Sabrina's between jobs right now." "Of course," I said yes. That's what family does, isn't it? The first week, everything seemed fine. Sabrina complimented my cooking, asked about family photos, even helped with dishes. But small changes began by week 3. Coffee cups left throughout the house, bathroom towels on the floor, the television volume too loud when I was trying to sleep. Little things, nothing worth causing trouble over. Then, one evening, I was bringing in fresh towels when I overheard them in the guest bedroom. "How much longer do we have to live with her?" Sabrina whispered, irritation sharp in her voice. "Baby, we can't afford our own place yet. Besides, Mom doesn't mind having us here." "It's suffocating. She's everywhere, watching everything, commenting on everything. We need our own space." There was a pause before she added, "That old woman needs to go somewhere. A retirement home, maybe?" I froze, clutching the towels to my chest. That night, I stared at my ceiling, telling myself I'd misunderstood. Maybe she was just stressed about finding work. Maybe things would improve. Have you ever ignored your gut feeling about someone, only to regret it later? Comment below if you've been there too. 2 years into their temporary stay, Sabrina announced she was pregnant. Despite my lingering concerns about her, I was overjoyed. A grandchild, a new generation to love and nurture. I thought perhaps a baby would soften the growing tension in our house, bring us closer as a family. How wrong I was. My granddaughter Naya was born beautiful and perfect. I fell in love the moment I saw her tiny fingers and button nose. But instead of bringing us together, Naya became another weapon in Sabrina's arsenal. "Don't hold her like that," she'd snap when I cradled Naya. "You'll hurt her neck." "She doesn't need another blanket. You're overheating my baby," she'd say when I tucked an extra layer around Naya during the winter months. "We don't need your outdated advice," she'd mutter when I suggested a remedy for colic that had worked wonders for Derek. Each criticism felt like a small cut, yet I endured it all, for Derek's sake, for Naya's sake. With each passing month, my son grew more distant. The boy who once shared everything with me now avoided eye contact at breakfast. The man who once called me daily for advice now consulted Sabrina on everything. It was as if a wall had been built between us, brick by brick, with Sabrina as the architect. "Mom, Sabrina thinks we should repaint the living room," he told me one morning. "The color is a bit outdated." "This house is over 40 years old, Derek," I reminded him gently. "Your father picked this color." "Well, times change," he replied, echoing Sabrina's frequent refrain. "We need to modernize." I gave in on the paint, then on replacing the sofa, then on removing the family photos from the wall because they were cluttering the space. Bit by bit, my home, my sanctuary, was being erased and remade in Sabrina's image. Then came the day Sabrina started locking her bedroom door when she left the house. At first, I thought nothing of it. Privacy is important, especially in a shared home. But one afternoon, as I was dusting, I heard a crash from their room. Worried something had fallen and might have broken, I knocked. No answer. I tried the handle, locked, of course. I used the spare key I kept for emergencies. Inside, nothing seemed amiss until I spotted Sabrina's purse knocked over on the dresser, its contents spilled across the surface. As I gathered the scattered items, a folded paper caught my eye. A bank statement with my son's name, but an account number I didn't recognize. Before I could look closer, I heard the front door open. "What are you doing in my room?" Sabrina stood in the doorway, eyes flashing with anger. I straightened up, clutching the duster. I heard a noise. "So you decided to snoop through my things?" She crossed the room in 3 quick strides, snatching the paper from where it lay. "This is exactly why we can't stand living with you. Always hovering, always invading our privacy." "Sabrina, I wasn't—" "Save it," she interrupted. "I'm tired of your excuses." That night, I heard them arguing in the kitchen. Their voices carried through the thin walls of my once peaceful home. "Your mother was going through my personal things," Sabrina hissed. "I'm sure she didn't mean anything by it," Derek responded weakly. "That's always your excuse. She didn't mean it. Well, I'm done. It's either her or me, Derek. Make your choice." A heavy silence followed. I held my breath, waiting, hoping for my son to defend me. "What do you want me to do?" he finally asked, defeat in his voice. "We can't afford our own place yet." "Then she needs to go. This house is big enough for us and the baby, not her. She's had her life. It's our turn now." The next morning over breakfast, Derek couldn't meet my eyes. Sabrina, however, stared directly at me, a subtle smirk playing on her lips. In that moment, I knew she had won. My son, the boy I'd raised, loved, sacrificed for, had chosen his wife over his mother. But I had yet to discover just how far Sabrina would go to get what she wanted. If you've ever felt replaced or pushed aside by someone you love, hit the subscribe button. What I discovered next made me question everything about the daughter-in-law who was slowly taking over my life.
The tension built over the next few weeks like a gathering storm. Sabrina accidentally broke my favorite teacup, the one Clarence had given me on our 25th anniversary. She reorganized the kitchen so I couldn't find anything. She turned up the TV volume when I tried to make phone calls. It was psychological warfare, and my son either didn't notice or chose not to see it. The breaking point came on that rainy Friday evening. I was knitting in my recliner, the same chair Clarence and I had picked out together decades ago, when Sabrina stormed into the living room, Derek trailing behind her like a shadow. "We need to talk," she announced, standing directly in front of me, blocking my light. I set my knitting aside. "What's the matter?" "This isn't working," she stated flatly. "We don't have room. You need to leave." The bluntness knocked the wind out of me. "Excuse me?" "You heard me." Her voice hardened. "We don't have room, you old leech. Leave already. You're holding us back." My gaze shifted to Derek, waiting for him to step in to defend me. Instead, he rubbed the back of his neck, eyes fixed on the carpet. "Ma, maybe you could stay with Aunt Brenda for a while, just until we figure things out." The betrayal cut deeper than any physical pain I'd ever experienced. This boy, this man whom I'd raised alone after his father died, was choosing to put me out of my own home. "Figure what out, Derek?" My voice trembled. "This is my house, the house your father and I worked decades to pay for." Sabrina laughed, actually laughed. Your husband is gone. Times have changed. We need this house for ourselves, for our family. You've had your turn. Garrick, I pleaded, turning to my son, are you going to let her speak to me this way, in my own home? He shifted uncomfortably, caught between his mother and his wife. In that moment of hesitation, I knew I'd lost him. Just for a little while, Ma, he repeated, not meeting my eyes, until things cool down. Until things cool down? I echoed, disbelief rising within me. Do you hear yourself? You're putting your mother out on the street. It's not like that, he protested weakly. You can stay with Brenda. It's just temporary. Like the 2 years you've been living under my roof? I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but refused to let them fall. The roof I paid for? The home I've maintained? Why are you making this so difficult? Sabrina cut in. It's not like you don't have anywhere to go. Stop with the guilt trips. My hands shook as I gripped the armrests of my chair. And if I refuse to leave my own home? Sabrina's expression hardened. Then we'll have to make you leave. The threat hung in the air between us. I looked at my son, searching his face for any sign of the boy I'd raised, the child who once brought me dandelions from the yard and called me his hero. I found a stranger instead. Fine, I whispered, rising slowly from my chair. But remember this moment, Derek. Remember what you allowed to happen here today. I packed a small overnight bag with trembling hands. Sabrina hovered in the doorway, making sure I didn't take anything too valuable, as if the photo of Clarence and I on our wedding day, the hand-knit scarf my mother had made me, or my worn Bible were worth anything to anyone but me. As I zipped my bag closed, I caught sight of my reflection in the bedroom mirror. The woman staring back at me looked older, smaller, defeated. I straightened my shoulders. I wouldn't give Sabrina the satisfaction of seeing me broken. My niece Brenda came to pick me up within the hour. The rain had started by then, drumming against the roof like an accusation. As I stepped out onto the porch, Derek reached for my arm. Ma, it's just for a little while, he said softly, his eyes finally meeting mine. I pulled away from his touch. No, son. Some things, once done, can't be undone. The door closed behind me with a terrible finality. In the car, Brenda kept glancing at me, concern etched on her face, but I couldn't speak. The lump in my throat was too large, the pain too raw. That night in Brenda's spare bedroom, I finally let the tears come. I cried for my home, for my son, for the family I thought we were. When the tears finally stopped, I lay in the darkness, listening to the rain against the window. They thought they'd won. They thought I was just a helpless old woman who would fade quietly into the background of their lives. But what I had hidden years ago would turn the tables completely. If you're feeling the anger rising in your chest right now, you're not alone. Hit subscribe and comment "Stand Your Ground" if you believe what happened next was justified. What Derek and Sabrina didn't know, what I had never mentioned because I thought it unnecessary between family, was that after Clarence died, I had quietly taken steps to protect myself. A woman alone needs to be twice as careful, my friend Beverly had advised me back then. Beverly was a family lawyer who'd seen too many widows left vulnerable. Get everything in your name, Evelyn. Make it legal and clear. So I did. I consulted with Beverly, had the house deed updated to my name only with a survivorship clause that would transfer ownership to Derek only upon my death, not before. While I was staying with my niece Brenda, trying to process the betrayal, I spent my days in a fog of hurt and confusion. How had it come to this? Where had my sweet boy gone? The child I nursed through chicken pox and heartbreaks had become a man I barely recognized. On the 4th day of my exile, my neighbor Pauline called. "Evelyn," she said, her voice hushed with concern,
I hate to be the one to tell you this, but there are people at your house loading furniture into a truck. Isn't that your mother's dining set they're carrying out?" My blood ran cold. "Are you certain?" "Positive. Your daughter-in-law is directing everything like she's running a moving company. I thought you should know." I thanked her and hung up, hands shaking with both fear and fury. They weren't just pushing me out, they were erasing me entirely, selling off family heirlooms as if I were already dead and buried. "They're selling my furniture," I told Brenda, my voice hollow with disbelief. My niece's expression hardened. "Not on my watch. Get your coat on, Evelyn." 20 minutes later, Brenda parked across the street from my house. Sure enough, 2 men were carrying my mother's cherished china cabinet toward a waiting truck, while Sabrina stood in the driveway checking items off a list. Derek hovered nearby, looking uncomfortable, but doing nothing to stop it. For a moment, I hesitated. Confrontation had never been my strong suit. Clarence had always handled difficult situations while I kept the peace. But Clarence was gone. And peace had been shattered the moment they locked me out of my own home. "Do you have the deed?" Brenda asked. I patted my purse. "Right here." "Then let's go." I marched up the driveway, my nursing shoes quiet on the concrete, but my heart thundering in my chest. 40 years of caring for others had taught me when to be gentle and when to be firm. This moment called for firmness. "Stop right there," I commanded, using the same authoritative voice I'd used countless times when someone tried to enter a sterile area unauthorized. Everyone froze. The movers paused mid-step. Sabrina's head snapped up, surprise quickly replaced by annoyance. "Evelyn," she said coolly, "we're just doing some renovations." "By selling my family heirlooms?" I stepped closer, noting how the movers glanced between us uncertainly. "Put that cabinet back immediately." Sabrina crossed her arms. "Actually, this house and everything in it belongs to us now. Derek told me his father left it to him." I turned to my son, disbelief rendering me momentarily speechless. "Is that what you told her?" Derek looked away, guilt written across his face. I just thought." "You thought what? That you could lie? That you could steal from your own mother?" My voice broke, but I forced myself to continue. "After everything I've done for you?" Sabrina stepped between us. "Look, the situation has changed. We need this space, and these old things are just cluttering up our home. You need to accept that and move on." "Your home?" I echoed, reaching into my purse. "Let me clarify something for everyone here." I pulled out the property deed and held it high. "This house is legally mine. Not Derek's, not yours, mine. And you're currently attempting to sell property that doesn't belong to you, which is theft." The movers set down the cabinet immediately, one of them muttering, "I don't want no part of this." Sabrina snatched the paper from my hand, scanning it frantically, her composure crumbling as she read. Her perfectly manicured nails crinkled the edges as her grip tightened. "This can't be right," she sputtered, looking at Derek. "You said—" "I thought it was mine," he replied weakly. "Dad always said—" "Your father said this house would be your inheritance someday, not today. When I'm gone, it passes to you. But while I'm alive, this house remains mine." Sabrina crumpled the paper in her fist. "You sneaky old—" "Careful," I warned. "The next words out of your mouth might result in me calling the police about attempted theft. Your choice." She threw the deed at me and stormed inside, shouting for Derek to follow. He hesitated, looking at me with a mixture of shame and surprise, before trailing after his wife like a scolded child. The movers mumbled awkward apologies as they returned the cabinet to the house. Brenda stood beside me, her arm around my shoulders, solid and supportive. "You did good, Aunt Evelyn. Real good." But as I smoothed out the crumpled deed, a chill ran through me. Something wasn't right. The desperation in Sabrina's eyes went beyond simple frustration at being caught. There was panic there. The look of someone whose carefully laid plans were collapsing. That's when I realized the truth. Kicking me out and selling my furniture wasn't just about having more space or getting rid of an unwanted mother-in-law. There was something deeper at play. Something calculated. The real reason Sabrina wanted me gone wasn't what anyone expected. If you're wondering what happens when family betrayal goes even deeper than you initially thought, subscribe now because the next part of the story shocked even me.
In the weeks that followed, I moved back into my house, though I took the smaller bedroom to keep the peace. Derek and Sabrina maintained an icy distance, their whispered arguments becoming a nightly soundtrack. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife, but I refused to be driven from my home again. One evening, when Sabrina was out with friends, Derek knocked on my bedroom door, his expression troubled. "Ma, can we talk?" His voice was low, uncertain, a far cry from the confident tones Sabrina had molded. I nodded, setting aside the book I was reading. "Come in, son." He sat heavily on the edge of my bed, hands clasped between his knees like he used to do as a teenager when he had something difficult to confess. For a moment, I saw a glimpse of my boy again, not the stranger he'd become. "I need to tell you something about Sabrina, about why she was so desperate to get you out of the house." The story he unfolded left me cold. Apparently, Sabrina hadn't just wanted me out for more space or privacy. She'd been pressuring Derek for months to remortgage the house, my paid-off house, to fund a boutique business her cousin was starting in Atlanta. She kept saying it was a sure thing, Derek explained, voice hollow, that we'd double our investment within a year. "And you believed her?" I asked softly. "I wanted to," he admitted. "She made it sound so easy, so certain. But when we went to the bank had rejected them because the house wasn't in Derek's name. Without proof of ownership, they couldn't secure the loan Sabrina so desperately wanted. That's when she became determined to remove me from the equation entirely. After you caught us with the furniture, I started looking more closely at our finances. Things didn't add up." What he discovered chilled me to the bone. While presenting herself as the dutiful wife and mother, Sabrina had been systematically draining their joint account. Small transfers at first, 100 here, 200 there, all going into a private account under her maiden name. "There's over $30,000 missing," Derek said, his voice breaking. "Money we were supposed to be saving for Nia's future." I placed my hand over his. "Have you confronted her?" He shook his head. "I'm gathering evidence first. But Ma," he looked up, eyes glistening with tears. "I think she's planning to leave. There was a lease application on her laptop for an apartment across town." My heart ached for my son, for the pain of this betrayal. But a small voice inside me whispered that perhaps this was the wake-up call he needed. The next morning, I called my old friend Beverly, who had retired from practicing family law just a year earlier. Over coffee, at her kitchen table, I weighed out everything: the attempted eviction, the furniture sale, and now the financial deception.
Beverly listened intently, her expression growing increasingly concerned. When she finished, she sat back in her chair, fingers stapled. "This is serious, Evelyn. If what you're saying is true, Sabrina has been committing financial fraud against your son and attempting to defraud you out of your property." "What should we do?" I asked. "Document everything," she advised. "Bank statements, transfer records, the fraudulent claims she made about house ownership. And," she hesitated, "you might want to prepare for a custody battle if she's planning to take Nia when she leaves." The thought of losing my granddaughter sent ice through my veins. Losing my home had been painful, but losing Nia would be unbearable. Armed with Beverly's advice, I helped Derek gather financial records while maintaining a facade of normalcy around Sabrina. Bank statements showed a clear pattern of money being siphoned off. Credit card statements revealed purchases, designer clothes, expensive jewelry that never seemed to make it into the house. Most disturbing of all was what we found in an email account Derek didn't know existed. Sabrina had been corresponding with her cousin about the investment opportunity for months. But reading between the lines, it became clear this wasn't a legitimate business venture. They were planning to take the money and disappear. "I can't believe I fell for this," Derek said one night as we reviewed the evidence in my bedroom, door locked to ensure privacy. "Love makes us fools all sometimes. The question is, what do we do now?" Before Derek could answer, his phone buzzed. His face paled as he read it. "She wants to know why there's a hold on our joint account," he whispered. "I froze it this morning after finding another transfer." That night, tension filled the house like a ticking bomb. Sabrina's forced smiles couldn't hide the calculation behind her eyes. Derek moved through dinner like a man walking to the gallows, knowing confrontation was inevitable. I put Nia to bed early, singing her the same lullabies I once sung to her father, heart heavy with the knowledge that our little family stood on the edge of a cliff. After tucking my granddaughter in, I paused in the hallway, hearing harsh whispers in the kitchen. "What do you mean the account is frozen?" Sabrina hissed. "I think you know exactly what I mean," Derek replied, his voice stronger than I'd heard him in months. "Where's the money, Sabrina? The $30,000 from our savings?" A glass shattered. More angry words. I retreated to my room, giving them privacy for this reckoning, while staying close enough to intervene if needed. An hour later, the house fell silent. I assumed they'd reached some uneasy truce for the night. I was wrong. It was just past midnight when Derek's phone rang. He had fallen asleep on the couch after the argument. I was in the kitchen making chamomile tea, unable to sleep with all the stress weighing on me. I heard him answer groggily, then his voice sharpened. "What? When? Are you sure?" When he hung up, his face had gone ashen. "Derek, what's happened?" I asked, setting down my cup. "That was Tanya from Sabrina's office. She saw Sabrina at the bank today. She was closing accounts, and..." He swallowed hard. "She had Nia with her and suitcases in the car." The mug slipped from my fingers, shattering on the floor. Neither of us moved to clean it up. "She's running," I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical blow. The phone call that night would shatter our family forever. Do you believe people who betray family deserve second chances? Hit subscribe right now, because what Sabrina did next crossed a line that can never be uncrossed.
Derek bolted upstairs, taking them two at a time. I followed as quickly as my knees would allow. He burst into their bedroom, flicking on the light to reveal a scene of calculated abandonment. The room was in disarray. Drawers hung open, half empty. Sabrina's jewelry box was gone from the dresser. Her side of the closet thinned out with only the less expensive items remaining. Her perfumes, makeup, the designer shoes she'd spent hundreds on, all vanished. "Nia," Derek whispered, panic edging his voice as he rushed to the nursery. The crib was empty. For one horrible moment, my heart stopped. Derek's face drained of color. Then we heard a soft cooing sound from my bedroom. We both ran down the hall and found Nia sleeping peacefully in a makeshift bed of blankets on my floor. A note lay beside her. "I'm not cut out for this life. The kid is yours. Don't try to find me." Derek collapsed to his knees, the note crumpling in his fist. Relief at finding Nia safe mingled with shock at being abandoned. I knelt beside him, my old joints protesting, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "She left our daughter," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "She just left her." I gathered him in my arms the way I had when he was small and frightened by thunderstorms. He broke down completely then, sobs racking his body as the full weight of Sabrina's betrayal crashed down on him. "I turned against you for her," he choked out between sobs. "I chose her over you, and she was using me the whole time." Later, as Nia slept between us in my bed, Derek confessed everything. How Sabrina had targeted him from the beginning, seeing him as financially secure with a house he assumed he owned. How she had isolated him from friends who questioned her motives. How she'd manipulated him into turning against me, the one person who had always put his welfare first. "I believed her when she said you were trying to control us," he admitted, shame evident in his voice. "I convinced myself you were the problem, not her. I even started to think—" He hesitated, unable to meet my eyes. "That I was after your money?" I finished softly. "That I was the leech, not her?" He nodded, tears falling again. "I betrayed you, Ma. I chose her over you. I let her push you out in the rain. How can you ever forgive me?" I looked at my son, truly looked at him. I saw his pain, his regret, his shame. I also saw the little boy who had cried at his father's funeral, clutching my hand like it was the only solid thing in a world gone mad. Forgiveness isn't always deserved. Sometimes it's given, because holding on to hurt only poisons the heart that carries it. I reached across Nia's sleeping form to take his hand. "You're my son, my only child. You made a terrible mistake, yes, but you're not the first person to be blinded by someone who knew exactly how to manipulate you." Dawn was breaking by the time we fell into an exhausted sleep, the three of us together in my bed, grandmother, son, and granddaughter. A broken family, but still a family. The next morning, while backing up photos of Nia from Sabrina's abandoned laptop, Derek discovered a hidden folder that made my blood run cold. "Ma," he called, his voice hollow. "You need to see this." The folder contained emails between Sabrina and her cousin Vanessa, dating back 3 years before she'd even met Derek. The correspondence revealed a long-term scheme that left us both stunned. "Found another target," one email read. "Single guy, decent job, thinks he's inheriting his mother's house. The old woman is still kicking, but we can work around that. Same playbook as last time." Last time referred to a man named Thomas in Cincinnati, apparently Sabrina's previous victim before she met Derek. According to the emails, she had followed the same pattern: rush to marriage, pressure to combine finances, isolate from family, then disappear with whatever assets she could liquidate. "She was planning this from the beginning," Derek said, voice hollow, as he scrolled through years of calculated deception. She wasn't my husband, she was my mark. Deeper in the folder, we found more evidence: fake ID documents, information on previous targets, even a checklist titled Exit Strategy, with items like secure liquid assets, establish new residence, and, chillingly, decide about child. She was going to take Nia, I whispered, horror washing over me. She changed her mind at the last minute. Derek nodded, his expression hardening. When the bank put a hold on the accounts, she couldn't access any more money, so she cut her losses and ran. What we found in Sabrina's abandoned laptop changed everything. Have you ever discovered someone's true colors too late? Comment, "Trust your instincts," if you've learned that hard lesson too, and subscribe to hear how we fought back against this calculated deception. We took the evidence to the police, but were told that without Sabrina present to question, and with her having legal access to most of the accounts as Derek's wife, it would be difficult to pursue criminal charges immediately. However, they did take the information about her previous victim and promised to investigate further. Financial fraud between spouses is complicated, the detective explained, but the evidence of a pattern with multiple victims changes things. We'll be in touch. Meanwhile, we focused on rebuilding. Derek filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment and fraud. He transferred the remaining money to new accounts Sabrina couldn't access. And day by day, he stepped up as a father to Nia in ways that made my heart swell with pride. "I never realized how much of the childcare Sabrina pushed onto you," he admitted one evening as we bathed Nia together. "She always made it seem like she was doing everything while complaining that you interfered." "That's how manipulation works," I told him. "It distorts reality until you don't trust your own eyes anymore." 3 months passed in relative calm. I resumed my place in my home, reclaimed my garden, and found joy in watching my granddaughter grow. Derek found a better job with a construction company and started attending therapy to understand how he had been manipulated so thoroughly. Then one rainy afternoon, not unlike the night they had locked me out, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Sabrina standing there, her usual polished appearance notably diminished. Her designer clothes were replaced by jeans and a plain sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Is Derek home?" she asked, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. "No," I replied truthfully. "Derek was at work." She swallowed hard. "Can I see Nia then, just for a minute, please?" The woman who had called me a leech, who had tried to steal my home, who had abandoned her child, was now asking for my mercy. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Why should I let you anywhere near her?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Because I'm her mother," she replied, tears welling in her eyes. "The business failed. My cousin took the money and disappeared. I made a horrible mistake, but I want to make it right." I studied her face, searching for the manipulation I'd grown to recognize, but all I saw was desperation and perhaps genuine regret. "Wait here," I said, closing the door partially while I checked on Nia, who was napping in her playpen. When I returned, I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door closed behind me. "Sabrina, I need to be very clear about something. What you did to my family, to your family, can't be undone with an apology." She nodded, wiping away tears. "I know. I just thought you could come back now that your plan failed, that we'd welcome you with open arms after you abandoned your child." The anger I'd been controlling bubbled to the surface. "Do you know what Derek found on your laptop?" She widened her eyes. "What?" "Everything. The emails with your cousin, your previous victim in Cincinnati, the whole scheme." Her color drained from her face. "I can explain." "No need," I interrupted. "The police are already investigating. Thomas from Cincinnati has filed charges. You're not just facing a divorce, you're facing potential fraud charges in 2 states. She took a step back, fear replacing the calculated sympathy in her eyes. "You're lying." "Am I? Check your email."
The police sent you a notice to appear for questioning. They were quite interested in your history of targeting men for their assets." It was a bluff. I had no idea if the police had contacted her yet, but her reaction told me everything. Her facade crumbled completely. "This isn't over," she hissed, reverting to the Sabrina I knew too well. "That's my daughter in there. No court will keep a mother from her child." "A mother who abandons her baby with a note saying, 'The kid is yours'?" I countered. "I wouldn't be so sure about that." She stormed back to her car, but before driving away, she rolled down the window. "Tell Derek he'll be hearing from my lawyer." True to her word, Sabrina hired a lawyer and fought for partial custody of Naya, but her case collapsed when her previous victim from Cincinnati came forward to testify about her similar scheme there. Bank records showed the pattern of financial abuse. And most damning of all, her own abandonment note was entered into evidence. The judge granted Derek full custody, with Sabrina allowed only supervised visits, which, to everyone's surprise, she declined. It seemed that without financial gain attached, she had little interest in motherhood. The investigation into her financial fraud continued, resulting in charges being filed in both North Carolina and Ohio. Last we heard, she had taken a plea deal to avoid prison time, agreeing to pay restitution to her victims and serve probation. As for Derek and me, we rebuilt our relationship brick by brick. He attended therapy to understand how he had been manipulated and to address the insecurities that had made him vulnerable to someone like Sabrina. I learned to forgive, not just my son for his betrayal, but myself for the red flags I'd ignored. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing watching Naya toddle around the garden I had replanted, Derek turned to me. "Ma, I've been thinking about the house." My heart clenched momentarily. Old fears die hard. "I want to add your name back to the deed," he continued. "This house should stay in your name until whenever you decide otherwise." Tears pricked my eyes. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely," he said firmly. "This is your house. Dad would have wanted you to feel secure here for as long as you live." I squeezed his hand. "And after that, when I'm gone?" "Then it becomes Naya's inheritance," he said with certainty. "I'll make sure she knows every story about her grandparents who built it with love." In the end, I learned that family isn't just about blood or legal documents. It's about who stands beside you when the storm comes. It's about forgiveness when it's earned and boundaries when it's not. It's about recognizing that love without respect isn't love at all. It's control. So if you're watching this and wondering if someone in your life is truly looking out for your best interests, ask yourself, do they celebrate your independence or try to undermine it? Do they respect your boundaries or challenge them? Do they lift you up or quietly tear you down? Because sometimes the people who claim to love you the most are the ones who will hurt you the deepest. And recognizing that truth might just save you from losing everything you've worked for. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel for more real-life experiences that might help you navigate your own family challenges. And comment below, what would you have done in my situation? Where are you watching from? Sometimes sharing our stories is the first step towards healing. Remember, your home, whether it's a house, an apartment, or just your peace of mind, is worth protecting. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise.